Hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk Ray Bradbury. If you've not subscribed to our channel, please do. Here on Let's Talk Ray Bradbury, I have been working through a collection called the Stories of Ray Bradbury. It's 100 tales. We're up to number 52 out of 100, and that is Calling Mexico from 1950. I'm going to start with a brief synopsis and then to share a few parting thoughts about what I thought of the story at the end of the video. But for the synopsis, Colonel Freeleigh is an old, sick man with a bad heart. He's been confined to his home and to his bed and his wheelchair for 10 years, and he's cared for by a nurse. Up until recently, he's even had visitors, but they've been taken away from him because I think they're his grandsons, but the nurse decides that there's just too much excitement and it gets his heart rate up, and that's going to kill him inevitably. So now he's down to basically... he has the telephone. And his last freedom has been to call old friends, have them put the phone receiver to the window and let him hear the sounds of their faraway distant cities. From his bed in Illinois, he calls a friend Jorge in Mexico City, and he hears the city's sounds, and it transports him back to his time there in his youth. Jorge is reluctant to do this, because he knows the gravity of the situation. He knows that his friend's sick. And finally, on this occasion, when the nurse catches Freeleigh on the phone, she takes the phone away from him and tells Jorge over on the line not to allow him to do it again because it could kill him. That day, when she takes away the phone, she also takes away his wheelchair, puts the phone on the opposite side of the room, and says, "I have to go out. I don't want you straining yourself while I'm away." But sort of finding his last bit of strength, Freeleigh gets out of bed, stumbles across the room, gets to the phone, slouches down against the wall, calls Jorge, and asks him to put the phone out the window once again. Jorge does this reluctantly. A few minutes later, some boys, including Douglas, the grandson, comes up the stairs. They find Freeleigh. He's on the floor. He's cold. Douglas takes the phone from his fingers, and he hears distantly, 2,000 miles away in Mexico City, a window being slid shut. So it's a short but pretty beautiful tale, sort of poignant in its own way, but also a little bit forgettable. The old man, he's sick. He's been losing everything that he has, everything that he is, a little bit by little, over the years in his sickness. And this is basically the story of growing old in general. But for the last 10 years, he's been down to just a few, so few pleasures really in his life. And, now that visitors are no longer being allowed openly, they have to sneak in when the nurse is out of the house. The last thing he has is this telephone, this little piece of technology that transports him away, not just to a different place, but also to his own past through memory. And it's really about the idea that he's willing to risk his health for these memories because in his old age, nearing death, his memories are more important. They're the bulk of his possessions. He's had what seems like a life well lived, but, with his body failing him other than his brain, really these memories are the last thing that he owns in the universe. Whether he can take them with them or not remains to be seen. But even at age 40, I can sort of relate to this. I think a lot of people can, because I have a lot of great memories from the past, and I always find myself trying to get back to those places. And you wonder, am I gonna create new times to rival what I enjoyed in my past, or my best years behind me? You never really know. And I think for that reason, it makes it relatable to just about anybody who is introspective by nature. But really, this is a story, like so many of Bradbury's stories, it's a story of technology. And Bradbury's known for science fiction, and I would hesitate to call this science fiction because it's just a telephone, which by this point, when it was written in the 50s, telephone's probably been around for 70, 80 years by this point, going back to probably the 1880s, I would say. But it is, in a sense, it is science fiction. because it is a phone, it's a piece of technology which, if you're not a scientist, it can almost seem magical, though we take it for granted. So I love how the use of a telephone, it's simple, it's a little bit archaic, especially today in our time of, cell phones that we take everywhere. But it is in its own way a type of science fiction. It's Bradbury going back to technology, even if it's not a rocket ship. It's just a telephone. So I really like that element of the story. And I think that's why 50, 72 years after being written, this tale still has some relevance, not just technology-wise, but also, more importantly, the human element, which we can all relate to. All right, guys, that is Calling Mexico from 1950, story number 52 of 100 in the Stories of Ray Bradbury. That means at this point we have now reviewed 152 short stories here by Ray Bradbury on Let's Talk Ray Bradbury. Hoping to one day be able to track down and review every single short story that he ever wrote, but that's going to be a challenge to do that, and it's going to take several years to get that project done. But yeah, if you enjoyed this, I hope that you will subscribe to my channel and come back in a few days when we will look at The Wonderful Ice Cream Suit from 1958. Thank you, and see you soon.